In today's NBA, there are three types of teams: contenders, rebuilding teams, and teams that want to contend but aren't good enough. However, they don't want to give up on their stars either. And a reason for that is these teams, such as the Pelicans and the Hawks, they were already in the rebuilding process a few years ago and deemed their current roster to be good enough to contend. And you really don't want to fall in that last category. I am aware there are multiple teams that fit in this category, but we're going to talk about three of them specifically in this video: the Pelicans, the Hawks, and the Clippers. So the Pelicans. Back in 2019, they traded their superstar Anthony Davis and decided to rebuild their team around Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball. A good idea, right? To build around young players that have superstar potential and try and compete for a title in the next few years, just like the Celtics did with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Well, since 2019, they only made 2 playoff appearances in 5 years. And they even went as far as to trade for CJ McCollum to help them make a playoff run. We all know how it ended. They lost in 6 in the first round against the Suns in 2022 and got swept in the first round against the young OKC Thunder this year.
Will sweep the series.
And recently, Brandon Ingram has expressed his frustration after being denied a max contract extension by the Pelicans. So he's now entering the last year of his deal, where he'll be earning a whopping $36 million and his trade value is at an all-time low. He only averaged 20.8 points per game, his lowest scoring average since joining the team, 5 rebounds and 6 assists. His true shooting percentage was 57.8% this year, which is slightly below league average, so all around not a good year for Brandon Ingram. And if that's not bad enough as it is for the team to have a disgruntled star they can't even trade to get anything valuable in return that would keep them in contention, I'm sure you remember the trade rumours surrounding Zion Williamson last offseason. His rookie max extension was going to kick in at the start of the 2024 season, and it didn't seem like he was going to improve, begging the question, is it even worth it to keep him on the team after only one playoff series at that point, which they had lost? Now, they did trade Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance Jr. and 2 other players, along with 2 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray this offseason, which will definitely add scoring to the team. I honestly think that they might be a top 6 seed, but the Western Conference is so stacked, and I don't think they'll get past the second round. If you add that to the fact that BI is most likely gone next year, and now you're really not in contention anymore. I view the Pelicans as nothing more than a good regular season team. Now moving on to the Hawks. The only reason they're not rebuilding right now is Trae Young. He's undoubtedly a great scorer, but apart from that one Eastern Conference Finals trip back in 2021, they've lost in the first round 2 years in a row, and this year they didn't even make it past the play-in tournament. Last season, the Hawks had the 12th best offensive rating, but also had the 4th worst defensive rating. So they were slightly above average offensively, but absolutely terrible defensively. And to make matters even worse, they decided to trade away DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans after the failed experiment of him and Trae Young in the backcourt. They also drafted Zachary Rizashea.
With the first pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Zachary Rizashea from Lyon, France.
To add some wing depth and defending, instead of trading their first overall pick to maybe get a star caliber player in return. Now, maybe they decided to go and get Rizashea to improve their defense, but that's also going to hurt their offense in the process, which is exactly the whole point of this video. The Hawks are in a terrible position right now, unless they convince Trae to wait for the young guys to develop, or they decide to rebuild properly. I'm sure Trae Young wasn't super excited about the fact that the Hawks drafted Zachary Rizashea, because he went on to call the players in this year's draft class role players. Ouch. And it's not even surprising when you think about it, because like Trey's not the easiest player to deal with. Now, in my opinion, if you take Trae Young out of the picture, the Hawks have a nice looking group of young players that they could build around. You know, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Rizachet, and Dyson Daniels. But the fact is, the Hawks don't seem to want to part ways with Trae Young, but they aren't going to compete for a title. So in my opinion, they're just stuck. Because like, on the one hand, they have one of the best point guards in the NBA despite him being a liability defensively, and on the other hand, they have young guys developing not ready for the playoffs. Finally, I want to talk about the Clippers quickly. With the departure of Paul George and the re-signing of James Harden to a 2-year $70 million deal, I really don't understand the decisions the Clippers have made. Not to mention the fact that they extended Kawhi Leonard to a massive 3-year $150 million deal. Yeah, like, they're in shambles. And I honestly think the reason they're sticking with this group of players is because of the inauguration of their brand new arena, the Intuit Dome. Financially speaking, it doesn't make sense to trade your stars if you're introducing a brand new state-of-the-art arena with 18,000 seats. Because who's going to go watch the games if the Clippers are rebuilding? So that's my theory as to why they're keeping this team together, even though they'll probably be competing for a play-in spot and a playoff spot if they're lucky. So what we have here is 3 teams still trying to compete despite important issues. You know, whether it's Brandon Ingram wanting a max extension from the Pelicans that he's probably not going to get, or the Hawks trying to keep Trae Young on the team while they figure out what direction they want to go, we're going to see major changes next year. Now, the Clippers team might still be the same, but, you know, their stars are aging. The only reason that they're keeping this team together is for financial reasons.